I mean, gaslight girl boss, I guess. Hello loves, my name is Wendy Weather. I am the History Drag Queen, and welcome to another history video where today we're actually talking about the life and times of the Chevalier d'Eon. Now, Miss Wendy, who is the Chevalier d'Eon? Well, they were a French spy and a trans-fluid individual. Now, a quick aforementioned thing, the Chevalier d'Eon is actually a kind of a weird, hot button-ish issue when it comes to gender and history and things like that. It was very convoluted trying to find different resources and things. But two things kind of like came about. Usually, whenever I research things, I try to stick to like encyclopedias and things like that. So Britannica was really helpful, as well as Casro. I found them via searching for this video because they were mentioned or like featured in a PBS clip of the Chevalier d'Eon. And Casro did an entire video that was very eloquent and very, very, very more scholarly than what I'm about to present. But anyway, just so you know, the topic is kind of mishmash, kind of confusing a little bit, but here we go. Now, the Chevalier d'Eon has a crazy long name. Yeah. And for the purpose of this video, we are going to call them Dion. Now, Dion was born in Burgundy, France, to a very poor French noble family. Their father was an attorney and their mother was the daughter of a commissioner's general. Now, we actually don't know much about Dion's like childhood, other than that we know they were very good at school. Like, they were very, very good at school. Flash forward, they graduated from college in 1749 with a law degree and started to become notable for their political writings. And just to preface, Dion is actually presenting masculine during this time. Flash forward to 1756, Dion is actually recruited to the Secret de Roi, which is the King's Secret, which is a secret network of spies for King Louis XV. Now, allegedly, Dion's first mission was actually with them and a group of individuals were sent to Russia to kind of infiltrate the noble group of the Empress Elizabeth and kind of get like intelligence and influence with them. Now, there are two different stories that say about how Dion started presenting feminine or female. The first one is the Empress Elizabeth actually used to throw these things called metamorphosis parties, which pretty much everybody was in drag. And kind of camp parties like that were kind of the norm during the time. Men would all the time dress as women in drag and women dressing as men. Like, it was, those metamorphosis parties were kind of like an elite, noble, like fun, campy thing to do. Which honestly is kind of fierce. And it is alleged that Elizabeth threw one of those metamorphosis parties whilst they were all there. And Dion was like, oh, this is kind of a moment, okay. And then because of that, started dressing and becoming a lady-in-waiting for Empress Elizabeth. Now, the other story, which I think is a little bit more plausible, Dion was actually told by the King's Secret to dress as both a man and a woman to infiltrate her inner circle. And so he would present as feminine in the Russian, like, nobility circle in order to get close and kind of intelligence with Empress Elizabeth, and then dressing as themselves, I guess, because they were presenting as male at the time, as a French diplomat. Now, me personally, I think the latter of the two is the most plausible one, dressing as Miss Diva for Empress Elizabeth for intelligence, and then dressing as a male French diplomat when they weren't doing that. So, but either or scenarios, Dion was presenting as a gender they may or may not have been given at birth. Now, that alleged mission to Russia and infiltrate and get influence over there, mostly to help French with their war with Britain, and kind of like have Russia as like a part of their team, apparently went really great, allegedly, because we're not really sure if that mission was real, but documents suggest otherwise, that yes, it most likely was. But because of that, Dion was actually given a new mission in Britain. They were originally sent to do peace delegations and gather intel about the British coastlines for future invasions. Now, this is where it gets kind of funkalicious, all right? Now, being a spy is not cheap. You have to do disguises, getting intel, things like that. It's not a cheap affair, right? And either Dion had spent too much money in Russia, or they were spending too much money while they were there in Britain. And they were like, hey, King Secret, can I get reimbursement? Thanks, mwah. And then Louis XV was like, no. Now, Dion was very upset about this and pretty much did what they did best and started writing an expose and kind of reading and trashing all of the French, like, aristocracy and, like, political figures. But Dion did not expose the king's secret because they were obviously very well aware. They were honestly trying to do it just to get their attention. And it was a very successful attempt. But then, two things started to happen in Britain while Dion was there. Word got around about Dion in Russia. And like, oh, that's actually a lady dressing up as a man. And they were like, oh, no, that's a man who dressed up as a lady. Like, they were trying to figure out Dion's gender. People were betting on it, like literal betting. Like, betting took place on Dion's gender. And it started to get out of hand, so much so, it was starting to kind of like risk Dion's safety, things like that. Because they were like, no, that's a lady dressed up as a man, let's get her. Like, you know, like, it was just kind of like, ooh, As well as Louis XV had to do something about Dion because, like, you know, wrote that whole expose, kind of got to do something about that. So Louis was like, hey, here's this really cool chill pension. Just stay in Britain, don't come back here. And Dion was like, hey, thanks for that, but could I just come back to France and just live my life as a woman, please? Which is kind of an odd ask for the time. Okay. Now, Louis XV was like, yeah, no, But then something happened to Louis XV. He croaks. Delberto gone. So, Louis XVI, husband of Marie Antoinette, BT dubs, was like, hey, Dion, what's going on? What's this? Because, you know, Louis XVI was trying to, like, you know, clean up other messes and stuff that, you know. Dion explained to him, hey, I'm in Britain. I actually am an AFAB individual who is dressing as a masculine person, in order for like this get intel in Britain and stuff. It's starting to get a little not safe for me here. I also did it in Russia, but I was also dressing as myself, you know, to get influence with Queen, like, Empress Elizabeth. And so, yeah, it's not safe for me in Britain. Can I please come back and just live my life as a normal, regular lady? Thank you. Louis XVI, like, fully was like, oh my God, yeah, of course, yes. And, like, everybody kind of believed that. They were like, oh yeah, of course, come back to safety. Oh my goodness gracious. And so much so, Louis XVI had to do a royal decree about Dion's gender, because not only was Britain talking about it, Russia was talking, France was talking about it. They were like, what's going on? And basically, Louis XVI was like, hey, Dion is an AFAB person, who dressed as a man, to honor and do service to her country. All right, okay, cool, chill, everybody, mwah. Let's just, you know. So, Dion went back to France and started living their life as a woman. But then Dion slowly started to do some realizations of some things. Transness and gender identity and things like that is a very complicated thing, and it's very unique to the individual. As somebody who is also a gender fluid individual, I get it. And Dion didn't want to always wear like noble woman clothes. Dion, they wanted to actually wear their like military service uniform because like it was an honor, like they, you know, had did all these accolades and accomplishments and like has the honor of wearing that uniform and wanted to still wear it. But, you know, oh, ladies can't wear that. Hey, And it was a very, like, internally, like, tumultuous time for Dion. They're dealing with, you know, their image as a woman, and then also still, like, you know, they earned their, like, military uniform, things like that, and they want to, like, you know, wear it as custom. But it's a whole kind of mishmash. Also, explaining somebody else's, like, gender struggles and identity issues, it's kind of impossible, but just know that's what was happening. Dion was struggling with a lot of different, like, identities and things. And the French, like, society didn't really like that. They were like, hey, you can't be wearing that. You're a lady no, meow. Now, also for the time, just to kind of like mirror kind of like our own society, parents of trans and gender fluid individuals may or may not accept their child. Something I came across about Dion, their mom actually was super supportive of them. So much so their mom was like, yeah, no, she was born as a girl. Hello, I birthed her. We raised her as a boy for other reasons and things like that. But now she's returning to womanhood. Which in hindsight is kind of very, very sweet in like a queer perspective. Like, Now, even with their gender struggles, Dion very much identified as a woman, but I guess they just kind of like really weren't sure how they fit in society as a woman. So, yeah. Then, flash forward, Dion actually kind of figured out what their life was gonna be. Dion actually became a sword fighter and a fencer. Oh yeah, the diva had a blade, honey. She would go out and also teach people about swordsmanship and fencing, as well as do these tournaments as kind of like, not like a gimmick act, but kind of like a shock act. Like, oh, this woman is fighting with a sword. Oh my goodness. And like, that's how she like, you know, started to make some money kind of like at the later years of her life. Is like a sword fighter and like teacher. As well as also later in life at this time, Dion said some really not so chill things about Jewish and other minority peoples because of hyper-Christianity things that were happening at the time. But that does not excuse their queerness because they said some things that were not great. But also not trying to brush over the fact Dion did say some not really cool, chill, awesome things about you. Like, that's, some of the things that she said, I was like, oh, okay, let's maybe not write those words, girl. Like, But anyway, I digress. But then something called the French Revolution happened. And that didn't really go super awesome for Dion. Dion had become super, super poor because of it and had to pretty much sell off a lot of her stuff. And then she started living with this widow lady named Mrs. Cole. Now, in 1810, Dion sadly passes away, and Mrs. Cole, their roommate, finds them. And as prepping, you know, somebody for like more like a funeral, like mortuary and things like that, Mrs. Cole and mortician and some other people that were prepping Dion found out that Dion was very much a AMAB individual. And like, no bones about it, had all of the anatomy an AMAB person would have. There was no like they're fully AMAB individual. Now, that does not spoil the fact of Dion's accolades in the military as well as their you know, impact on French politics and history. The Chevalier Dion very much was a trans individual and lived a very decent portion of their life as the gender they identified as. And that, my loves, is the life of the Chevalier d'Eon, the French spy diva with a sword. Now, someone who is a AMAB gender fluid individual, reading about D'Eon's life and kind of their issues with gender and everything like that, it was not oddly satisfying, but oddly like kind of reassuring that like, oh, trans and gender fluid people have their own experiences with queerness like centuries back, you know, and that they were kind of also struggling with some of the issues that even some people in modern day like deal with. Like they were still trying to figure out themselves and their part in society and like how they kind of fit. And finding oneself in gender is very much an individualistic thing, and it's not really black or white. It's mostly like gray, maybe lilac, like maybe it's chartreuse. It's a very unique like thing. And I think the Chevalier d'Eon was very much a mold breaker in several aspects. What do you think about the story of the Chevalier d'Eon? Put in the comments below. And as always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and stick around because you just might learn something.